Hey guys, HackerSploit here, back again with another video. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at CrunchbangPlusPlus. Plus Plus. Now, it's been a while since I've made a Linux distribution review, and one that has caught my attention, of course, amongst the many others, is CrunchbangPlusPlus. Plus Plus. Now, if you aren't familiar with CrunchBang in general, let me give you a bit of history about it, all right? So, CrunchbangPlusPlus Plus Plus is inspired by the classic CrunchBang distribution, that has been there for quite a while but has been recently discontinued. Now, it is based on Debian and was developed by Philip Newborough, which was created with simplicity and performance in mind. And the reason for that is because, firstly, of course, it uses Openbox, which is a window manager with no desktop environment. Now, the original project was discontinued by Philip Newborough, and CrunchbangPlusPlus Plus Plus is a community fork of the original project with an aim of maintaining, reinventing, and improving upon it. All right, now I used CrunchBang a while ago on an old laptop, and it impressed me with its performance and low resource consumption, primarily due to the lack of a desktop environment, which generally consumes more than a fair share of system resources. Now, it really works well on older hardware and can really breathe new life into an old system. Now, for those of you a bit new with window managers and you're really not sure what exactly I'm talking about, a window manager is essentially system software that controls the placement and appearance of windows within a windowing system in a graphical user interface. It can be part of a desktop environment or can be used standalone. All right, now examples of popular window managers are i3, Xmonad, and Openbox, which is what CrunchbangPlusPlus is based upon. And the reason it uses Openbox is because Openbox in general uses very low resources. All right, so of course the question then comes into mind is, why would you use a window manager, and how is it different from a desktop environment? Well, a window manager is preferable in situations where you want to dedicate the least amount of resources to the GUI and focus more on being resource efficient and essentially dedicating all your resources to applications, etc., etc. All right, now window managers lack features that desktop environments offer. For example, menus, a whole wide variety of features that I'll get to in a second, and it'll differ from with desktop environments or highly customizable desktop environments like GNOME, Mate, whatever the case. It'll become apparent very, very soon. Now, for those of you who are experienced with window managers, you already know what I'm talking about. All right, so without any further ado, let's get started. You can go ahead and click the link in the description. That will take you to CrunchbangPlusPlus.org. And the website is extremely simple, and I really, really appreciate it. And of course, the great thing now is it's based on Debian 9, which is fantastic. It means we get great support and we get really good stability. All right, now you can go ahead and take a look at the introduction here, the screenshots. You can also take a look at some of the features, which it does list right over here. So it'll give you a bit of the new features. So Slim has been replaced by the Lite, LXDM, updated GTK, the GNOME the GNOME theme, which is version 3.2.2, and these are essentially just icon themes. Opera has been dropped from the browser list for obvious reasons. And of course, the new ISOs have a live boot option, which you can use to test out whether or not you want to actually go ahead and install it and use it. And of course, no more net installs. You essentially have ISO files here. It's based on Linux 4.9, not the latest version of the kernel, but as a very, very solid version nonetheless. So we're ready to get started. Now I'll get into the features and my basic review once we've installed it, and I'm going to be installing it on VMware. So I'll be taking you through the initial installation, and then once that is done, I will set up the VMware guest editions and or the VMware tool, sorry. And once that is done, we can get started. So you want to click on download either 64-bit or 32-bit, depending on the computer or whether or not you're running it on a virtual machine. Once you've downloaded the ISO, I'm going to open up VMware, sorry. And within VMware, I'm going to create a new virtual machine. Click on the ISO image, which is CrunchbangPlusPlus version 9.0. Hit next. This is a Linux operating system, and it's based on Debian 9 64-bit. I'm going to hit next. Now for this, I'm just going to store this within my VMware VMs, and I'm just going to create a new folder here, and I'll just call it CrunchbangPlus Plus and create the folder there and hit open, and we'll call it CrunchbangPlus and hit next. and you now want to dedicate disk size. In my case, since this is a simple demonstration, I'm going to store it as a single disk file. I'm going to store it within I'm going to store the virtual disk as a single file with the maximum size of 20 gigabytes. Hit next. We can customize the hardware here. Now, of course, I can use this at 1 gigabytes, and I'll get to how awesome that is, and the fact that this uses the least amount of resources I've seen on a Linux distribution in a long time. However, in my case, I like giving it about 2 gigabytes because I want to review a couple of things. I'll select 2 processors with 2 cores per processor, and the network adapter is going to be bridged. I'm going to replicate a physical network connection state and hit close. And once that is done, I'm going to hit finish, and we can close, and we'll wait for that to start up, and it should prompt up the installation screen in a second. And now we can get started with the installation. All right, so there we are. We can load it live, or we can go for the graphical install, which is the default Debian installer. I'm going to hit enter for the graphical install, and we will give that a few seconds to start up here. And I should have zoomed in the screen. If not, it should have expanded the screen. In any case, you should have a full view of the installation screen. We'll let that start up, and it should take us to the default Debian installer, which you should be familiar with if you've been installing Debian-based operating systems or distributions. One of them is Kali Linux. If you have installed Kali before, this should be pretty simple. So I'm just going to hit continue. English is my language, United States is the location, and the keyboard layout will also remain as American English. Hit continue. It's going to now load all the files from the ISO. And of course, if you have installed this on a USB flash disk, then the process remains the same. It is going to load up all the files right over here. All right, so we're just going to wait for that to complete, and we'll give that a few seconds here. Once that is done, we will essentially be able to configure this, configure the installation rather. So we'll wait for the network, and this comes to another issue that I wanted to get to essentially explain. The driver support isn't the best for network adapters and for some CD drives or DVD drives, whatever you want to call them, or optical disk drives really. So if you do have that error, don't worry, you will be able to install those drivers after the installation. Alright, so the host name, I'll leave that as Debian, or you can change it to CrunchbangPlusPlus if you want. I'll just leave it as Debian. No domain name, hit continue. And we now need to configure the name. I'm just going to call it Alexis, hit continue. And that is the username, hit continue. You can enter a password here and hit continue as well. I'm going to configure the clock. I will leave that at central, hit continue. And we will get started with the installation. All right, so we now need to configure our disks and essentially configure how it's all going to be installed. I'm just going to go with the guided, use the entire disk. If you are using a custom configuration where you want to install, whether you're essentially customizing the installation on different disks, you can go ahead and use the guided or perform a manual partitioning. I'm going to hit continue, and we have the VMware disk right over here, and I'm just going to hit continue there. I'm going to install all files in one partition. If you want to separate them, go ahead and do so. I'm just going to hit continue, and we're going to finish partitioning and write changes to the disk. So right over here, and yes, I do want to write changes to the disk, and hit continue, and we'll wait for that to complete, and that is going to start copying all the data to the disk. All right, so we are just going to wait for all of this to complete, and I'll get back to you when this is done. Alright, so the installation is complete and is now asking us to configure the package manager. So if you do want to select a network mirror, go ahead and do so. In my case, I don't want to do that right now, so I'm just going to hit no and hit continue, and it's going to start configuring the aptitude package manager. It's going to get all the necessary files here. We're going to wait for that to complete. All right, it's going to start installing the grub bootloader, and of course we're going to have to specify the location. So install the grub bootloader to the master boot record. That's exactly what we want to do, and hit yes. If you don't want to do that, make sure you hit no. That's very important. If you still want to maintain the default or the standard bootloader that you're currently using, that is on the master boot record. I'm just going to hit continue, and I'm just going to specify the storage device A right over here. Hit continue. That is going to install the grub bootloader. All right, so again, we're just going to wait for this to complete. and it's going to complete the installation here, after which I will start installing the VMware tools. And after that is done, we can get started with the review, and I'll essentially take you through the entire interface. So I'm going to complete the installation, install the VMware tool so that we can have a large full screen, and I'll get back to you when that is set up. Alright, the installation is complete and I was successfully able to install the VMware tools, and I've just logged in, and this is the welcome screen that you will be given as soon as you log in. So the first thing you'll see is that you'll be welcomed by the CrunchbangPlusPlus welcome script, which again is set up just to get you started. So right over here, you can go ahead and take a look at the introduction here. So you'll be presented with a series of options. You'll need your administrator, your sudo password rather. So please have it ready. You'll also need a working internet connection. So if you have not done that already, make sure you configure your internet connection. If you do not want to run the script now, you can run it at a later date by entering the command CrunchbangPlusPlus welcome in your terminal. So we want to hit continue. That is enter, and let me increase the font size here, and that we can see what's going on exactly. And it's going to ask me whether we want to update our software sources. So I'm just going to yes, we want to do that. I'm going to enter the password here, and it's been a while since this was released, so it is going to take a while. So again, I'm not going to update my packages and rather upgrade my packages. So I'll just hit no for now. Do I want to install printer support? That's very important. For those of you who use Linux, you know how important and how significant printer support is in the history of Linux rather. So in my case, I'm just going to hit no. Do I want Java support? That's also something fantastic that they've added. If you don't want that, make sure you hit no. If you do, hit yes. I'm just going to hit no. Do you want to install LibreOffice? If you are using LibreOffice, you can go ahead and hit yes for install, and of course no for not. I'm not going to install it. Would you like to view these options? No, I do not want to, and we can exit right over here. And welcome to CrunchBang Plus Plus. I do apologize for the VMware little menu or tab right over here. So I do apologize for that. Now, the first thing you'll notice is you do not have a desktop environment, and the only menu you have is this little right click right over here, this right click menu that sort of sorts it out really well. So you can search for a program or run a program directly. You have your terminal, web browser, file manager, text editor, media player. You then have your accessories, which has Catfish. You have an archive manager, you have the Genie text editor, the task manager, which is HTOP, and we'll get to that right now in a second. We'll also take a look at the system resources and how less it is using. So we want to take a look at accessories still. The default file manager it does use is the Thunar file manager, which is fantastic. It's very nice and snappy. It also has this nice custom icon theme right over here, and you can essentially just browse around all your directories. For those of you not familiar with how window managers work, you don't have any desktop, so you are not going to find any desktop directories, but that's for that right now. Let's take a look at the other accessories. For graphics, you have GIMP, you have the View image viewer, which I haven't seen for a while. You can also take screenshots with Screenshotter. You have multimedia, you have your VLC media player, volume control, and XF burn, which allows you to burn data to disks, and also you can essentially burn or music, whatever the case. That's up to you. Let's take a look at the network here. So for network, you have your www browsers. You can install Chromium. You have Firefox. You can also install Google Chrome stable. You have FileZilla, which is awesome. You have your BitTorrent client here, which is transmission. You have your IRC client, which is HexChat, remote file systems, remote desktop, which is fantastic. You can also install a VNC viewer. And for SSH, this is something that I really like. You can edit your SSH config directly, and any of your profiles will fall all under here, which is fantastic. You have Dropbox, where you can install Dropbox, really cool as well. It's not really what I would call free and open source software, but again, it does give you all of the options to install all the popular tools or utilities that you might find yourself using on a daily basis. You then have LibreOffice. We can install LibreOffice. You have Google Docs. You have the ABI word processor, the numeric spreadsheet, calculator, Atril PDF viewer, nothing special there. For your places, you can access all your files right directly from this little menu here. You can access your downloads, documents, etc. You also can edit your bash RC file here. So if I click on it, you can edit it and it opens it up in Genie. And that's something I want to get to in a second in regards to your configuration, but let's take a look at the entire menu here. For settings, you have your compositor that also allows you to restart, disable it, and of course edit the compositing settings. Now, this is where things get a little bit advanced. If you are not familiar with essentially using the compositor and the various settings in the configuration file, I would not recommend playing around with these files, but it's essentially all to do with the look and feel. So again, you can play around with the various bits of information or the settings like the opacity. You can take a look at shadows, all that good stuff, something I'm not going to get into right now. When we talk about your settings, you have Conky, which is right over here, right on your right, which is really gives you two configurations. One is useful, the other one gives you your shortcut keys. The basic one is system info, which many of you are familiar with. You have your host, uptime, RAM, swap usage, disk usage, and your CPU usage. The shortcut keys it gives you sort of like an introduction to the operating system in general, so you can keep them there if you want. If you don't want to run Conky, you can disable Conky, or you can edit the Conky right from its Conky configuration file. As far as I know, it does not come with the Conky GUI management tool, so you need to edit it using the configuration file, and you add all your Conky plugins or extensions right from the configuration file. All right, so let's go back into the settings. So you then have your DM menu, which we'll look at in a second. You have this little tray up here, which has your desktop switcher, which is, if I'm not wrong, is Tint Tool. So if we take a look at the settings, if we look at Openbox, that is the window manager. You can go ahead and look at the GUI menu editor or the GUI config tool, which I think is really cool. It does give you that option to configure the appearance of your CrunchbangPlus Plus Plus installation. I like going with this nightmare theme. It looks really, really cool. You can take a look at the other appearance options you can change here, like fonts. You can take a look at your windows. It's similar to what you'd find with your GNOME tweak tool, but a little bit different, of course. You then have your dock. The dock is right over here, which of course lists all the current open sessions you have, or the open applications that you currently have. You can configure all the options in regards to your dock, something that I'm sure you'll do once you get started with it. So you can go into settings. So that is Openbox. You can go ahead and play around with the editors there and configure it to your liking. You then have Tint Tool, which again, you can take a look at the config file, or you can restart it. So if I restart it, there we are, I was correct. Yeah, so that is the little panel here, which is fantastic that they did add it, because a lot of people would be getting confused if they don't have a dock and a desktop switcher, or more like a window switcher. So right over here, which you can also do by scrolling with your mouse wheel. All right, so you're going to go into settings, display settings. You have your A&R screen layout editor, which I personally love. I absolutely love it. So you can go into your screen layouts editor. You can edit your layouts right from over here. You can also save your different configurations. In terms of your view, you can configure the screen format or the display format. You then have your outputs, which is your virtualized display, because you're running this in a virtual machine. The resolution is set right over here. The orientation is also set. Really fantastic layout editor. I really love it. And you can take a look at your key bindings over as well. All right, so let's take a look at the other settings that it does come with. In regards to your notifications, you can configure them as well. I'm not really going to be taking a look at that right now. Your user interface settings, again, that is all to do with your overall look here. So you can configure it with Bluebird, Blackbird, all in regards to how you want it to look. It has some really nostalgic themes here with a bit of Windows, sort of inspiration. But again, go and check it out for yourself. It really is very, very customizable in terms of its look and feel. In terms of the other options here that you can configure, you have your power management, screensaver, and of course you can choose your wallpaper, which it does come with the default Debian wallpapers here. So nothing really special. I like the default one that it comes with, nice and simplistic. In regards to your system, you have gparted and you have your Synaptic Package Manager. So when installing packages, you can go ahead and install them directly from the terminal, or you can use your Synaptic Package Manager, which is a huge plus. If you know me, you know that I love it. I absolutely love it. And one last thing is, if you are not comfortable using the dock that it already comes with, which is Tint Tool, I would recommend installing Plank. I personally have used Plank with CrunchBang before, and it really, really was awesome. So again, that's all up to you. If you like having a dock, you can go ahead and install it, and you can just take a look at the resource consumption, 296 megabytes. Now, one thing that is going to be an issue, and I would recommend you also sorting out, is the fact that you're not going to be getting the latest packages in regards to the various pieces of software. So for example, you can see that Firefox is still using an old version here, which can be fixed by updating your packages, which it really did force me to do. So definitely check that out for yourself, update all the packages, and you should be pretty good in regards to the latest versions of software, although you're not getting the latest in regards to software, so no bleeding edge stuff there. However, it's more focused on stability and performance, so that is something to be taken that you should take into consideration. That being said, that's my basic review and the installation of CrunchBang. It's an operating system I'll be taking a look at a lot more in the future, and something that I am going to be installing on a few computers that I do have running in my home office. So let me know what you guys think. Give it a go. Definitely let me know what you think, how it can be improved, and is it something that seems promising. So yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know in the comment section on my social networks or at the forum at hackersploit.org, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace.